I need to be able to leave if I need to. I mean, it's important to me because if I'm forced to stay, how does that benefit any of us? But if I want to stay, that makes a huge difference. Hey, it's nice to see you. My name is Rachel, and I'm so happy you're here. I'm a little low energy today, so if you feel that vibe, please know it's not because I'm unhappy to be here. It's just because I'm a little gosh darn tired, you know? In this video today, we're gonna talk a little bit about why it's so important to me to find out how to live well both in my personal life and in my professional life, and to share those lessons with you. We'll go through a few things. First is a bit of background as to where I come from, what some accomplishments in my life look like that give me credibility to speak on this. We'll also talk about how personal growth has happened in my life as a direct result of many of the things we talk about on this channel. And then we'll continue to flesh out sort of what that looks like for me today. So let's get started. First, I've spoken a little bit about this in previous videos that I come from a very religious background. I'm from West Virginia, which is right in the heart of the Bible Belt in the United States. And what that is, it's just a heavily influenced area by Protestantism and Catholicism. And I grew up in a very Protestant minded community, I guess. I went to Christian school. I went to church all of my younger life, and so I was in church, either Baptist or non-denominational. I didn't stop doing that until the pandemic hit, and that's not a part of my life anymore. In a lot of ways, I really appreciate the upbringing that I had because I was taught a lot of really beautiful principles about loving other people. As I grew older, though, I noticed that a lot of the practices that I was taught were not necessarily done in practice. And also that my role, my identity as a woman had some very unbending expectations around it. It's very much expected to get married and have children very young. It's very upsetting to many folks in that community whenever you don't abide by what the expectations are for you. And like to this day, I'm well aware that the way I'm living is very upsetting to some folks. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna stop just because you're uncomfortable. But the point of this episode is not to talk about, well, my relationship with religion is important to share because it has influenced so much of my life through literature, through worldview, and then the changing thereof, and through how I view myself. The practiced view of yourself is very low, and there is a lot of praise around humbling yourself. However, humbling yourself often looks like, in this context, suffering. And self-inflicted suffering is not healthy and not sustainable. And so that is something that I try to no longer have as a part of my life. Another factor that I took issue with quite a bit is this sort of blind trust in superiors and blind faith in superiors. And I remember how devastating it was to me whenever I grew up and realizing that many of the folks that I admired for so long were actually causing a significant amount of harm to the very people they were telling me that they were trying to help or proselytizing to. It's also been a heavy point of influence because I've had to undo so many difficult lessons that I listened to. Whenever I went away to college, though, actually I didn't go away. I like stayed in my hometown. It was so interesting to me to then be presented with folks outside of what's kind of like the bubble and interact with different belief systems and different, I don't know, folks with vastly different life experiences. And I think what really started changing things for me was how kind people could be to me, um, when I was so set in a particular set of beliefs, and that they gave me the space and grace to freely practice those things. Um, whenever what I realized was the faith system that I was in told me that it allowed those things in other people, but it really didn't. And the ways in which other people would be talked about, comparison was always a huge factor of comparing us to people who didn't believe the same way we do. Yikes. And so there was a lot of fear built up about, like, well, I have to be a certain way to not be compared in a negative way. And whenever I met folks who didn't compare me in a negative way at all, I was like, what? Modesty was always a um frequently talked about subject in my younger years, to the extent of your character was often called into question if you didn't abide by certain modesty practices that was really kind of exclusive to this group that I was with. Um, and whenever I, again, was in college, I took a history of fashion and textiles course, and I loved it. And I learned that modesty is actually very subjective across time, geography, cultures, and what is considered very modest in one area is considered immodest in another, and vice versa. And it doesn't mean that just because someone's idea of modesty differs from yours, that their character is poor, or that you're somehow on a higher moral ground than they are, and or more deserving of blessings, of peace, of you name it. And so that really changed the game for me. I mean, for goodness sakes, I it took me so long to even feel comfortable trying to wear a crop top in public, let alone, like, I mean, a little off the shoulder situation. I'm cool with it now, but it it took a lot of time to to not only start thinking critically about why these practices are done a certain way, and also what it means in my life and whether I want to practice that way or not. And here we are. So, beyond the religious context of my life, I've always loved learning. I've loved reading a lot, and I really enjoyed higher education. So I have a bachelor's degree in communication studies with a concentration in interpersonal communication. So a very I loved my time in this program, and I love this degree, and I use it daily, of course. We studied theory and psychology, and I got to study the classics. There were a lot of critical thinking and writing courses that opened my eyes up to the fact that I can think. I was in the honors college. I was a founding member of the dance company there, and I loved my time with the dance company. I took advantage of every possible opportunity that I could to continue to grow and learn more because I had so much fun doing it. I then went on, during the pandemic, I auditioned on a whim for grad schools, and I got in. I got my master's degree in acting in Southern California, and so everything was packed up into 2 cars, drove across the country, moved, went to school there for 3 years. I was a part, very briefly, of a neo-futurists group, which was kind of cool. I did stand-up comedy there. I learned how to be a clown. I was in the most rigorous movement classes I have ever been in my life. We did a lot of something called contact improvisation, and we did a lot of voice work and breath work and dialect work. We did several shows. I got to be in things like Cabaret. I was Sally. I was in something called Airness. I was the Nina. It's an air guitar show. Look it up if you're not familiar. It's pretty cool. I did a lot of devised movement theater, and the thing is, I have loved theater all of my life, and this was the very first time in my life where it was the focus, where I got to pour everything into it, whether I wanted to or not. Like, it just is so demanding. And I would do it again, honestly. It was so hard, and it opened me up to so much self-knowledge. We did a lot of voice projects where first we learned about someone else, we did an interview project, and we presented it as other people, and then we started developing in our second and third year projects about ourselves and who we are and what we want to say, whether it's with other people's words. And then in our second year we did that. We took a lot from like prose and music and poetry, and um, that was a wonderful project. And then in our third year, we also did a voice project, but it was using our own words and really defining who we are and why we are the way we are. And that's a large part of why I feel comfortable talking to you like this now. I'm very proud of where I come from, being from Appalachia, and I understand that the religious roots go deep, and it's not just about me. And I do have a choice as to what I take forward with me or not. Something that we said or something that my professors said all the time in grad school was take what works for you and leave what doesn't. And that's said because acting techniques, there's so many and they don't necessarily work for everyone. So you really have to kind of pick and choose what works for you in acting technique. And it was a very helpful practice just sort of in life of take what works for you and leave what doesn't. Because your body knows when something doesn't work for you, and your body knows when something does work for you. Whenever you're able to breathe easy and you feel at peace and you're able to digest things both in your stomach and in your mind, great. Your body also shows indicators that things aren't so good for you whenever there's a lot of stress present, whenever you're having stomach issues, whenever you're having sleep issues, a myriad of things. It'll manifest whether you want it to or not, the good and the bad. And where we did so much like body work and voice work throughout our time there, I had no choice really but to begin to process through things and let things go. And in my final year, whenever we did do the voice project, I just repeated over and over again that I can do hard things because I can. There is nothing that life has thrown at me so far that I have not overcome. And believe me, there's a lot that I did not want to overcome. I didn't even want to go through. And sometimes growth happens when you're screaming, crying, kicking, throwing up. And sometimes growth happens whenever you're still and breathing. And it can be very lonely to go through personal growth, but I wouldn't change it. In my religious upbringing, there was a lot of fear around learning too much or learning the wrong things. And so I was always scared that learning more would come with heartache. Well, you know what? Heartache comes either way, and understanding what's going on has helped me a great deal. And there won't always be people on your path that want the same things or want what you want for you, and that's okay. It's easy for me to be really hard on the previous versions of myself. I've truly lived like 1,000 lives and none of them intersect, and all of them intersect. Do you feel like that ever? I don't know. What I'm grateful to look back on is I have every receipt, if you will, of me taking care of myself, of me doing hard things over and over and over again. And with that information about myself, I have every confidence in the world that I can do hard things and that I will continue to do hard things. It will not be easy. That is literally in the statement. At every stage, I was doing my best with the most that I knew at the time. And I got to do things like I helped establish a um, the theater program in my middle school and high school. I did speech and debate competitions. I was the captain there for a minute. I won nationally like 4 times while going through a rigorous graduate program. I also got to work in London for a little while. Hey, if any of my friends in London are seeing this, I hope you all are well. I've had these opportunities to travel and to learn and ask questions and take in art and go to museums and speak with people, and it has led to a very full life in a lot of ways. Moving on, so what is my profession? You may be wondering. I'm a multi-hyphenate, so there are a lot of things that I'm good at, and my eggs aren't all in just one basket. So to give you a bit of a glimpse into it, I'm an actor. I've spoken very extensively about that. I've worked professionally as an actor in California, in Milwaukee, in across New York State. I look forward to expanding that repertoire. I am also a teacher. I have taught acting. I've taught music to high needs level students. I teach voice lessons currently. I'm also a businesswoman. I've opened my own business, products that I hope can be useful to others who are going through similar things. I'm a creative strategist on top of all of these things. I never thought I would be doing that, but I'm having a great time and I really enjoy it. Then lastly, what living life well means to me. What it means to me is living in a way in which I am able to feel at peace and healthy and happy. And sometimes achieving those things takes a long time. There are many facets in which I'm working towards those goals, but I haven't yet met it. Another factor that's really important to me is advocacy, self-advocacy, and advocating for others. I deal with some health issues, and so being able to advocate for myself in health environments has been incredibly important to me, to be able to receive the care that I literally need. And as I've spoken about it online, it turns out that a lot of people go through this, which has been very eye-opening and very concerning. Living life well, to me, also looks like being independent. That doesn't mean being without relationships or being without support systems or being without romance in your life, but rather understanding for myself what's going on, what things are, and how I feel about it and what I want to do about it. So for me, I really value being able to understand my finances as an individual, of being able to know where my money's going, what savings looks like, what income looks like, what investments look like, whether I'm doing the best financially or whether I'm doing the not so best financially. I want to be able to understand for myself what's going on. As a freelancer, it's not always certain whenever income of a certain number is going to consistently be deposited into my bank account. I also don't like relying entirely on someone or some entity. I need to be able to leave if I need to. I mean, it's important to me because if I'm forced to stay, how does that benefit any of us? But if I want to stay, that makes a huge difference. And then lastly, for now, like developing a sense of style and self-expression has been very interesting to me, as I navigate what a well-balanced life looks like. Because for so long, like as I talked about modesty earlier, my appearance was so structured in a way that I thought made me holy or made me pure or made me XYZ, when in reality, like I determine for myself what is appropriate for myself in what I put on my body. I know I'm not the only one who's gone through this, but in having grown up in a religious setting, cutting my hair was not really allowed. Or at least it was heavily frowned upon. And one of the biggest initial steps for me in finding some independence and some say over how I look and move through the world was I cut off all of my hair. And I had a pixie cut for about 3 years. I might go back sometime. I don't know. I'm growing it out right now because I'm doing it on my terms. And so, like, to sum up all of these things, this is really just a small glimpse at who I am. I mean, I haven't even told you my favorite books or my favorite musicians or how I like to spend my free time, but um, I feel like these are some of the larger points that matter a lot, and not that the others don't matter, but you get it. I feel like I fundamentally change as a person every 3 months, and it's not because I don't know who I am. It's because I keep learning more and I keep shedding more. And I'm really glad that I do. That I'm glad that I do change so much because because I'm not changing away from who I am. I'm really trying to change more into who I am all the time. So that's a bit about me, both on the personal side and the professional side. And whatever you take away from this video, I hope is very useful to you. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you next week whenever we start a brand new video series on independent womanhood. I'm hoping to share practical tools that have helped me that I hope can help you as well, no matter what stage of life you're in. And as always, you got this. Thanks for being here. See you next week. Bye.